Oh, I'm Uncut, an ex-top 50 World of Warcraft tank who now plays semi-casual in the raid scene, and today I have the pleasure of interviewing Reddy's Bird, a recruitment officer for Erebos. Can you give us some of your WoW background?
Sure can do. My WoW background basically stems from vanilla beta. I played in a guild called Ring of Ash, which basically cleared all through Naxxramas in TBC. I joined Gentleman's Club and basically rose up through the ranks of Gentleman's Club to their recruitment officer, sticked around with them until about halfway through Wrath of the Lich King when I decided to join Farm Status. Played with Farm Status until they decided to break up at the end of Wrath, and kind of played a bit casually from then on through to Mop, where decided to start Erebos with a few friends.
Cool. So how do you think your guild's progression has been so far?
Well, we basically got a little handicapped at the start of the expansion. We started off with a few healers which didn't make the transition from Mop to WOD very well. So we got a bit of behind at the start. We basically had to rebuild our healing core from scratch, which was a bit of a pain. But after rebuilding the healing core, I couldn't be happier with them. And basically now we're kind of catching up to a lot of guilds who were way ahead of us. So I'm pretty happy with how things are going.
So as a recruitment officer, how do you keep the players motivated in a sense that you don't get them poached?
It's a two-pronged thing, really. Getting players motivated is... It's everything from just talking to them on a regular basis and making sure they're happy, to having trust in them, and basically, whenever they're approached by other guilds, I trust that if they are thinking of leaving, they'll tell me, and if not, we generally have a laugh about it. I've had several of my raiders attempted to be poached by other guilds, and generally it's just a good laugh in guild chat. Nothing has ever come of it, and I actually, this expansion can say I've lost a raider to another guild.
Okay, cool. And where do you go to recruit players, and what do you find is the best one out of these?
Pretty much I go where everybody else goes, which is the looking for guild forums. I spend 95% of my time on the LFG forums, trolling through there, which is literally a couple hours a day job to stay on top of recruitment. I do dabble a little bit in MMO Champion, as well as I will say I do poach other players. I do look through lesser guilds' logs and approach their better players, which has netted me some very good results in the past. And I have no bad feelings towards that.
Yeah, would you say that's just a natural part of the WoW lifestyle in the recruitment, I guess I could say?
Incredibly. Even more so these days with the way rating is at the moment. With 20 mythics, everybody's running smaller cores, but with the slump and the expansion at the moment, we are losing more raiders than we're gaining. And I've read a lot of reports where people are saying we lose, 10 raiders a week and we gain one in kind of hindsight. So it's only natural to go to other guilds to poach their members. It's a survival technique and you have to do it.
And these poached members, do you feel that they're the ones that are more likely to leave the guild then and get poached from another higher guild? So say you're mid-crop and you're poaching from a lower crop. Are you ever afraid that they're going to go to a higher crop guild?
I'm afraid of any of my players leaving for a higher crop guild. It's the name of the game and that's how it goes, and that's why you have to make your players happy at all times. I mean, it happens. I will probably see it happen in our guild eventually, especially now that we're really pushing balls deep into mythic content. I know we've brought trials in who have not seen the inside of a mythic. They've gotten mythic kills with us and quite literally jumped ship before they even had the chance to be promoted within the guild. It's just a very natural thing that sometimes players will guild hop. I do try to avoid those players as much as possible. I generally try to poach the players who are more in guilds that are stuck, not active guilds. So those guilds that are really not progressing anywhere, not moving forward, can't form up for Mythic, and it's more that they're really frustrated that they're not doing it, and just they want to see the content before the next patch.
So on that note, what advice would you give to a guild that is actually stuck?
If you're not spending every minute of your day playing WoW, recruiting, your guild's going to break up, and that's as simple as it gets. as an officer and as a recruitment officer, staying on top of recruitment is basically the number one name of the game. And every minute of every second of your WoW time, if you are serious about your guild, should be dedicated into keeping it running. And this is why I personally sit myself from raids sometimes, just so I can recruit during the optimal hours, which is our raid times, to make sure that we are always stocked and always have the players we need to form up. There is not one time in my guild's history where we haven't made raid due to lack of members, and that's the way I plan to keep it.
And what he means there, viewers who are watching this, is the raid time we raid is 8 till 12 Eastern. So our guild raid time, people looking for that raid time are going to be looking at that time because their guild's either fallen over or they're in raid and they're unhappy. So say your guild is raiding at, I don't know, 3 in the morning, recruit at 3 in the morning. Don't just recruit at, like, say, our time because it won't work for your guild. Anyway.
Goes without saying, to add to that, I mean, past weekend is a very perfect example for me where I had nothing to do on the weekend. I stayed home for most of it. And I attempted to recruit throughout the weekend, and to tell you that I had zero luck would be an understatement. I got no interviews because everybody on the Looking for Guild forums on the weekend were literally people just looking for weekend guilds, so it is a bit of a waste of time to look outside of your raid times.
So anyway, back to the original question. So you gave us 3 examples, which was MMO Champion, the WoW Recruitment Forums, and poaching. Out of the 3, which would you say is the most effective way of recruiting?
Personally, I think my best members have been from players who have actually come to me. Not to say that I haven't recruited some exceptional players, because I have. But some of my better players are the ones who have actually approached me and come to me. And good example is our Windwalker monk Spiraltastic, who emailed me out of the blue, and basically has been an incredible asset in the guild ever since. But on the flip side of the coin, I've also recruited exceptionally good players, like one of our holy disc priests. She'll kill me for saying that. Sid, who is also very, very good and an indispensable player. So it's really double-sided coin, but the Looking for Guild forums is definitely the place to do it. And I mean, that's where 90% of the players go. You very rarely find that you'll pick up players from MMO Champion or Icy Veins or any of the other little sources.
Yeah, totally agree. And so anyway, you're on this forum, the WoW Recruitment Forum, and you're going through pages and pages of potential apps, and it hasn't been filtered yet because Blizzard are lazy as shit. What you're looking for when you're going through all these pages?
First and foremost, I'm not so much of a stickler for eye level. I mean, yes, it is important at our point of progress, having people that we don't have to go back and gear up. But the thing I'm looking forward to most is basically reading a post that seems like it's written with somebody who has half a brain. If you list the important things, what server you're on, why you want to leave your current guild or what happened to your current guild, your raid times, what you want to play and what you're looking for, that to me is gold. I read anywhere up to 100 posts a day, and I'll tell you the majority of them literally have no information, and that's when you have to go and track them down or leave your little bit of spam, and it's a pain. So anybody out there who's looking for a guild, I highly recommend just adding a little bit about yourself, why you're looking for a guild, your battle tag, your battle tag, your battle tag. Leaving a battle tag is probably the biggest no-no for me.
Yeah, it's very makes the recruitment officers a lot harder if there's no battle tag, obviously, because then there's no way of contacting you apart from catching you when you may be online, which is not as often for most players nowadays. So anyway, the next part of the recruitment thing was you've actually got this player in your battle tag, and now you're trying to like set up an interview. Once they're in Mumble or Vent or TeamSpeak or even Raid Call, how do you assess the player?
Basically, for me, getting from the add-on battle tag to the Mumble interview is probably the most crucial process. It's basically just making sure that when you start talking to them, you got to realize that they're a human being as well. They're looking for a guild. Sometimes you will get rude people who will approach you and will be very cutthroat and they're, what's your progression, what's your times? And if you flat out don't meet them, they're not even half interested in talking to you. But there are other people that I've added where I've had a really good conversation with them before I've even gotten to the WoW related stuff. Once you get them on Mumble, it's basically anywhere, depending on the role that you're recruiting for, anywhere from a 10-minute interview to a 2 to 3 hour interview. And trust me, I've done my 2 to 3 hour interviews with crucial roles. I've done follow-up interviews with those crucial roles, mainly tanks and healers that generally fall into that category. For DPS, it's not so much of a big thing. You can generally tell if a DPS is good just from looking at their logs. I mean, logs won't tell you everything, but they'll tell you enough to know. I mean, obviously you have to see the player in action, but with a tank and healer, logs are good, but the reaction time, watching their play style, watching their mechanics is so much more important for those roles than a DPS. So basically the assessment can be anything from, you know, a very short period of time of talking to them to a full-on 3 to 4 days worth of talking, giving them a trial cross-server, talking more, getting to know them, getting to know their history, and all the jazz that goes along with it.
Okay, so you've assessed them, and now they're assessing you. So how do you sell yourself to the player, and more importantly, how do you sell the guild to the player?
Never blow smoke up anybody's ass. And that is the number one complaint I hear from people jumping guilds. Having recruitment officers or officers from guilds sit there and tell complete lies to trials and trying to get them in their guild, and then they come over and they find it's all complete bullshit. Just don't lie, just tell it how it is. I'm an open book with my guild and I will tell anybody coming in here the dirt, the good, the bad, the ugly. Because I want anybody to come and join my guild to be happy with the decision they make. And if they're not happy with the decision they make, 1, they won't give you 100% of their effort, and 2, they'll just leave. And you've just wasted valuable time you could be wasting on somebody else. Well, not so much wasting on somebody else, but recruiting somebody else. So it's one of those things where just don't lie. It's that simple.
Yeah, definitely agree with that one. If you lie to someone, as soon as they come into the guild, it's very blatantly obvious, and they're going to just start looking elsewhere. So anyway, next part of this interview is going to be how to combat higher-end Mythic guilds. So the question I have for you is, currently, as anyone can see from the main recruitment WoW forums, higher-end guilds are taking a lot lower progressed players. For example, 8 of 10 Mythic recruiting 8 of 10 Heroic players. How do you combat this being a low progress guild and convince players to join you rather than them?
Incredibly difficult, to be honest. It's one of those scenarios where they obviously have more to offer. An 8 of 10 Mythic guild has more to offer than I do at the moment. So it's one of those things where you hope that one of the other criteria your guild offer meets that person's requirements. Whether it's a raid time, whether it's atmosphere, whether it's things you do outside of raid with these people. Sometimes other guilds that might be higher progressed don't have to offer these things, and that's something that I can offer a lot of people. Is, yes, alright, we're not 8 of 10 Mythic at the moment, but hey, my guild does a lot of stuff outside of raid. We play League of Legends, we play a whole bunch of games together. We PvP, we level alts, we're always around and mumble. There's a really good guild atmosphere over here. Are you looking to make friends as well as raid? I mean, I've been in those cutthroat top 50, top 30 US guilds. Sometimes they're not like that. And over here, I really pride myself on the fact that the guild has built a really good atmosphere of its friends. And it's friends killing bosses, and that's literally how it is.
I think another thing you haven't really gone over with that question is, like, these players that are, like, aiming, like, if they're going to get poached to an 8 of 10 from an 8 of 10 Heroic to a Mythic, then they've got 2 things against them. One, they haven't got the pulls on the bosses, so they're probably going to fail the trial just because of the amount of pulls that a boss is taking, which can be anywhere from 50 to, like, 600 on, like, Mythic Blackhand. And do you really want that player in your guild? So I wouldn't really be deterred as a recruitment officer not getting these players and actually losing them.
That's also another point. I mean, yes, these players that you pull in sometimes don't have the pulls. and it can definitely show, and it can also be viewed as a waste of time.
Yeah, and another thing is when recruiting as well is if you're doing like off server, or even if they come to your server and they've got this progression, you got to ask yourself, like, have they actually just gone to a guild who are 8 of 10 mythic and been pulled in for certain bosses to get the kills, and was they carried and failed the trial? Like, you don't know. You need to find out this guild history and recruiting, really.
And that's why sometimes I do go back to potential players' old guilds and ask them these questions, because people do lie, and WoW Armory can only tell you so much. So I have gone back on some potential applicants and asked their old guilds about them, their history, why they're leaving, and I've corroborated stories before, and I've also found out complete lies and dodged bullets on very bad trials.
Yeah, that's very good if you can actually go and talk to, like, other guilds recruitment officers. A lot of people are nice, but some are just dicks, so it's just a thin-edged sword or whatever you call it.
Double-edged sword. It's all it's about being human. It's about just approaching this person. Obviously, there'll be, if the guild is still running and the player's leaving for the sake of leaving, that officer will probably be a little salty at the fact that that player's leaving. But sometimes it might be a different scenario. I can give an example of a recent boomkin we added to the guild. His old guild broke up, but I didn't know that. He just told me. And I wasn't 100% sure if the story was true, so I approached his old guild leader and actually asked. And he did corroborate the story and did tell me that yes, we are broken up, yes, he's a good player. And now he's a full-on, full-fledged member of our guild, so...
Yeah. Anyway, so we're getting close to time here, so I'm going to skip a few questions and get right to the main one that a lot of people like come to me and ask, and that is, lots of guilds have been breaking up recently. What do you think causes this, and how do you think it can be stopped?
Very simple. The cause of guilds breaking up at the moment is lack of good leadership, and it shows all over the place. If you basically running a guild is a selfless thing, and this is what I say all the time to a lot of the trials who whisper me on battle tag during my raid times, and they're like, why aren't you in raid? It's very simple. I care more for the guild than I do seeing progression bosses. I want my boys and girls to be happy. I want them to go in there and kill the boss. I can go in at a later date and get the kill. That's fine. I'm not all hung up on EPing and I killed the boss at this date. It doesn't mean nothing to me if the guild isn't running. I take the time out of my day to definitely sit there and recruit. If you're not staying on top of recruitment, your guild's going to fail at all times. Don't ever be complacent. Don't ever be comfortable. Always look to replace, always look to improve, and always look to bolster. Every guild from Blood Legion through to Gentleman's Club and a million guilds in between have all failed because of lack of recruitment. They get complacent, members get frustrated, you have 2 or 3 leave, it's a cascade effect, boom, guild's done, over.
Yeah, that's extremely true, especially with the recent Blood Legion breaking up. It's like high-end guilds even doing it now who've been around for years and years.
And this is why high-end guilds are poaching lower-end players, because the pool of players is very separate at the moment. You got an increasingly shallow pool of top-end players who have nothing to poach from, and you have a very large pool of mid to low tier players, and that's why these top-end players are waddling over into our pool and pulling out the better players to bring over to their side. It's just the name of the game.
Yeah, another thing I'd like to add, this is not really to the recruitment, but this is to the trials, is if you do get sat for this progression, like you go into guild and you get sat, it's not the end-all and be-all of like, oh my god, I'm going to fail my trial. It's because you haven't got the pulls, like these pulls on bosses, like even Heroic Blackhand is like a 150 pull boss. You're coming in on, like, it's your first time seeing it, you're going to fuck up. These guilds don't want to be wasting time on farm content because you're propping a bomb or you fuck some up and you're holding them back, so... If you do get sat, just wait around till they start a new progression boss and show what you've got then. Don't worry if you get sat for farm content. Show them what you got when it's the progression.
Yeah, the biggest detriment I find is when we have trials over here who start bitching almost straight away that, oh, I was sat for the first raid night I was here. It doesn't mean that we don't want you. It doesn't mean that we're not going to give you your fair trial, because we give everybody their fair trial. It just means for what we're doing that night, you are not particularly needed or useful, or it's just something that we can't trial you on because we've already put 200 pulls into it. So sometimes it's just better to sit there and wait, go play something else, go level an alt, be around when we do need you. Sitting there and bitching and moaning about it will get you a very swift kick to the arse, and you'll be looking for a new guild very quickly.
And the same shit's just going to happen in the next guild. The light's never shine over that hill. Trust me, been there, done that.
The grass is sometimes not greener on the other side.
Yeah. Anyway, on that note, that is the end of this interview. And I'd like to say thank you to Veredisbird for his time.
Anytime, any place, anywhere.
He's got a massive dick. And on that note, bye 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 bye
bye bye bye bye bye bye bye.